Hi, this is Kim with www.embody-light.com and my website. The link is listed in the description if you'd like to set up an appointment. I do psychic readings, hypnotherapy, Akashic records work, past life regression, sound healing, Reiki, all kinds of different spiritual work. So, twin flame sessions. So, today's video is about what is inner child work. And I got a little out of sync with my recording because the one that releases after this, I talk about, and that's how to connect with your guides and your angels. But I talk about in there, one of the things that can prevent it is if you haven't done your spiritual work, your clearing work, and if there are inner child issues. And so, what are inner child issues? I wanted to talk about. So, when we have something happen to us when we're children, um, depending on what age we are and our ability to be able to handle the trauma, we either remember it and integrate it and deal with it, or it becomes a repressed memory where it's locked away for safekeeping until we've matured enough or have the skills and tools that we need to be able to remember it and integrate it. Now, you may not remember these things in your mind, but your body is always going to remember, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. So, one of the things that can happen is this can be cyclic, where if a trauma happened at a certain time of year, that person every year will re experience another trauma that feels very similar to the first one. And the reason that is because it's the universe bringing situations to get us to clear and heal. So that is why that happens. And your body will remember even if you don't know. Something happens, some tragedy, and there's a person, the perpetrator, you're standing in line at a grocery store or whatever, and there's another person that sounds like them or looks like them or smells like them. Your body is going to react with that fearful reaction, even though you don't make the connection and know why it is. So another thing you're going to notice if you still have inner child work to do is you have an abnormal accelerated reaction to something that happened. Something's happened that's upsetting, but your reaction is way beyond what would typically be considered normal. And so one of the things we'll see if the person was 2 years old or 4 years old and something happens, that trauma is going to re-come up and they're going to act in their trying to deal with it, they're going to act just like they would if they were 3 or 4 years old whenever it happened. Now, I'm just going to give you one example here. I worked with an individual years ago who had, some trauma around the age of 14. Um, and it really was something she got into trouble for and severely punished. And I don't know if it was deserved or not. But, anyways, so every time this person at work, if things weren't going her way or weren't going right and she feared she'd get in trouble, she would be awful. She'd act like a 14-year-old. It was terrible that she'd never grown up past that. And that person, I don't know where she is now, but she did not do well in her life because of it. So another thing that can happen is a part of, and that's when I'm talking about the disassociation thing when you don't remember it. A part of our energy can kind of almost like fracture off, and we're no longer fully embodied, fully spiritually empowered because a part of our energy has stayed with that situation that happened that we never healed. And so I'm just looking at my notes here. So what needs to happen? Oh, another thing that can happen, I just want to talk about is people can become hyper vigilant and hyper alert in preventing abuse that they didn't even know happened. So that happened to me quite a bit. So the reason I'm talking about this is because the healing really involves re-feeling everything that happened, and you have to go through it again and re-feel it again. When those things come up, it's not, oh no, I'm not healing, this is still happening. No, look at it like it's coming to the surface so that I can remember it and heal it. That's why it's actually coming out. So it involves re-looking at everything, remembering everything, and having it come to the surface and meeting it with love, forgiveness, taking your power back, whatever you need to do. So that's what happens. But you hear about inner child work. That's basically what it is, where you're dealing with those things in your childhood that are not healed. But one of the things we do is something called the inner wounded child technique, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute and tell you how you can do that on your own. But it's very common in what I do for work that I got to pause this a second. Sorry about that. So one of the things that I've noticed in working with people, and this is very common, that they've done, they've taken their power back, they've done their forgiveness work, they think they're done, and then something happens and they're re-triggered all over again. So say it was a cruel parent, mother, father, whatever, teacher, it doesn't matter. And you were afraid of that parent. And every time you got in trouble, that fear rose up in you. A lot of us were doing this kind of work, we're abused as children. You were afraid of the abuse that was coming. So what'll happen is the individual thinks, okay, I forgave my father, my mother, my teacher, whatever, and took my power back. I don't understand. Why is this still happening? Because that's how you're going to know if it's healed, if it's still showing up in your world. Why am I still having people at work trying to disempower me or make me feel like I'm not worthy to be anybody's friend or they don't like me? Well, trace it back. What's that similar to, that feeling? Oh, that's the same feeling I would get when I was fearful my father was coming home and I was going to get it for some little kid thing. So that feeling will come back up. So that's what you have to realize. So then if you're doing inner child work, what we would do if you were in a session, I'd have you imagine separating yourself into three parts. And this is really easy to do when you're under hypnosis. But you've got your wounded child, your ecstatic, spiritual, joyful child, and then your adult. And make a spectrum of energy, wounded child at one end, ecstatic child at the other, adult in the middle. And then you have this conversation with yourself. Reviewing what happened from the adult perspective, because sometimes we find out that it was the misunderstanding of a child. I'm going to give you one example, and I have talked about this before. Somebody I had worked with, not as a client, just somebody I knew at work, had a situation where her parents divorced and she lived with her brother and her mom and her stepfather. Well, prior to the divorce, the mother was a stay-at-home mom and had taught the brother how to read and done all these nice little things with him. But she did not get that same treatment. And she didn't know why it was, and it didn't really make any sense because the mother was very good to both of the children, but she didn't know why it was. She always felt bad that the mother liked the brother better because she spent all this time with him. Well, when I pointed out and said, well, was that right when your mom got divorced? And she said, yeah. And I said, did your mom have to go back to work after being a stay-at-home mom? She said, yep. I said, okay, that's what I think it is. You got to discern for yourself. But once you have kids, you realize how hard it is to work full time and get everything done. Some of those little things do fall, and it wasn't a little thing to her, but do fall by the wayside. So with that, knowing that, she was able to heal that because she realized it was the circumstance and not her personally. So that's one of the things that can happen. The other thing, some of us have things that happen to us that were not a misunderstanding of a child. So in those cases, you have to have, as the adult, tell that wounded child that I'm so sorry those things happened. That was a long time ago, and it's not ever going to happen again. I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to keep you protected. And just the things that will make that wounded child that still lives inside of you feel safe. Then you imagine having them come to the center of this spectrum of energy and integrating each other. And you point out that had you not gone through those experiences, the reason for going through the experience, like maybe something like you had to do forgiveness work and clearing traumas and that kind of thing, because when you grow up, that's going to be a valuable tool for you to have. And sometimes we choose when we come in to experience what we don't want so that we can change that. And you just have those conversations and you have them come to the center and integrate them. And you just keep doing it with everything that comes up. Um, I'm going to tell you one thing, and this is how it worked with me. And this was a long, long time ago. But as a child, I would have these reoccurrent, and this wasn't anybody who knew about this stuff helping me. This was just guides and angels. But I shouldn't say just, they're very effective. But I would have these almost nightly nightmares, night terrors of being in like this wooden cabin with my mother and my brother, and all of a sudden we'd hear the Native Americans come, the war cries, and we were ambushed. And in the dream, which I never woke up from and found out what was happening, I just woke up before it happened, but we would be moving furniture and stuff in front of the doors so they couldn't get in, just panicked. And I always thought my dad was at work. That wasn't it. My dad was coming to kill us. Um, and if you've listened to my other videos, you know that he kind of did that in this life too. So, point being though, I had that nightmare every night and I was terrified. It wasn't until I went to school and learned that these were things that happened long ago in history and that it most likely would not be happening again. Once that was taken care of and I learned those things, I was able to finally heal and the nightmares stopped happening. So it's just putting it into the perspective of the adult, and if you did have really horrendous things happen, you may need to do more forgiveness work or whatever. And the forgiveness work is for you, it's not for the other person. The other person may not deserve it, any kind of redemption or forgiveness. But point being, the forgiveness takes the energetic imprint out so that you're no longer carrying another person's shame, guilt, trauma, which is what they're trying to inflict on you when they're abusing you. So this was just a cute little video, a quick little video, not cute little video, and um, ask for divine guidance with this, because what you don't heal is going to keep coming up and carrying over until you heal it. I did have one other situation that I'm going to mention too that was very traumatic for me. Um, at work, when I used to work in my nursing job, there was a child they were giving shots to, trying to give shots to, and this child wasn't having it, kicking, screaming, crying, hysterical. I thought it'd be over, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. I was not working, I didn't work with giving children shots. I worked with a chiropractor, and I couldn't stand it anymore. So I finally went and said something to the doctor responsible for them. Isn't that enough? That child sounds like he's reaching. It was a him. I thought it was a her. The point of no return. Well, the doctor went in and stopped it, but I was just mortified. I couldn't believe that they were that barbaric. They were doing it and that they didn't know about the point of no return. They're sitting there trying to argue with me and plus that. And I'm like, oh no, that does happen. Um, it was probably 2 weeks. I couldn't even hardly stand to be there. I thought they were barbaric in their dealing with that child, and I still believe that. But the other thing, because I didn't even know I knew there was child abuse, but I didn't know the extent of it. The other thing that happened is I didn't sleep for 6 weeks. I was so traumatized without even knowing it or understanding why, because I hadn't uncovered all of my trauma. So that just reset it within my nervous system. And once again, there I was, not feeling safe because something happened to me. And hearing it in that child re triggered that. So, with that being said, just a quick little video about what inner child work is and why it's important. I love you all. Have a blessed day. And again, my website is www.embody-light.com. It is linked in the description box below. And have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye.